What's up, guys? Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas. And apparently, I did it again. I played the wrong intro to the serial killer story hour, but that's a good one, though, with those kids. My AI kids definitely love using them. I've got some funny other ones I've got for future stuff, like in the spring and summer when the weather's nice. I got like a beach one and a picnic one. And so, yeah, there's some good ones out there. Good to see everybody here tonight. Let's see who we got. Jethro Troll, first one in the box, followed by Donna Lembo, the one and only, the captain of the Mayhem Squad, the moderator running the show. We got Jody Lee. Hell yeah. Very good. And let's see, Voice of Astrology, Karis. Nice to see you again. And we got Summer Snow 11. Very cool. And Catherine S. Always nice to see you, Catherine. Very cool. And Catherine's also a moderator, so she could take care of business. But we don't have troubles here. We don't usually have it. Of course, I say it now. We're going to get sabotaged with trolls tonight, but hopefully not. But anyway, we don't normally have trouble. Just don't tolerate it. If people want to act like idiots, then they would just kick them out. That's just that simple. Just not playing any games. But good to see you guys. Serial Killer Story Hour. Been doing these now for a couple months. I think this is the 20th one. It's either the 19th or the 20th one. According to my file I keep where they all are, I number them. So yeah, these 20 of these, that's cool. I really didn't know how long we were going to do this. I wanted to kind of feel it out. Normally, before I got sick and everything, with the necrotizing fasciitis last year, before all that, I was doing the podcast, and we did that every Tuesday night. We recorded, and then I uploaded it Wednesday, and it was live on Thursdays at midnight. Was how we did it for 8 years, every week. Missed very few weeks. It was pretty much consistent throughout the whole 8 years. Then that happened. And so that changed that. I haven't been out there to do it right now because, it's just some physical issues with me and some other things going on it's just not the right time to try it. But in place of that, for me at least, Tuesdays seem like I need to talk serial killers. And so I came up with the Serial Killer Story Hour, doing it on Tuesday nights, just because that's what I did for 8 years on Tuesday nights. And in the podcast, we talked about serial killers for about an hour. And then the show, Murder, Metal, Mayhem, then we did a metal segment. We picked bands. We interviewed lots of the bands and musicians and all kinds of, it was cool. And then we'd play some of their stuff. And then we'd have the Mayhem segment, which was just absolute craziness. We had the serial killer cage match we came up with, and fans voted for who fights who and with objects they get to fight with. And it was wild. And so that was the podcast. So if that sounds like something you would like, then you could go to the channel, and there's a tab for podcasts, and there's like 282 of them in there. So you can go to town in there, but the language is rough, and the episodes most of them are about 2 hours long total. So that's why this is just that murder part of it that I'm doing here on Serial Killer Story Hour. So yeah, Jethro says he's high society. So that sounds like Jethro, right? So yeah, so that's kind of how this all became a thing. But I thought, coming up on 20, it's cool to see the milestones. I used to write an online magazine called The Brutality Report. I did that for 10 years straight. every week, even when I had cancer and all that stuff when it was going on. I kept it going through the whole thing, and it was crazy. But so I've always been all about the longevity, doing something and just sticking with it. And I enjoy doing this, and so even if the crowds are small, that's fine. I really don't care. I'm not going to tiptoe around words so much. I'm not going to blatantly go out of my way to, piss off the gods at YouTube. But at the same time, if something comes out, it just does. So, and I meant to wear my Murder Metal Mayhem Santa shirt, but I think it's in the laundry. So my apologies. But I got Paulie Walnuts here to take care of business, and he's pointing at somebody. I don't know who's sitting over here, but he's pointing at you. Or maybe he's pointing at my grabber over there. That's what I use. If you if you're ever, have the bad luck or know somebody with the bad luck of having to be in a wheelchair, talk about a Christmas gift. This is like I have one in every room because I'm being in a wheelchair. It's it's something that you need all the time. And I got my leg on, so I've had it on most of the day. So yeah. And Jody says, "Let it rip, Pete. We're all adults." Yeah, I mean, on here, I would say on here I'm like PG-13 on YouTube. Um, the podcast is like is R as R could possibly be, bordering on maybe X. I don't even know because it's wild. It's wild, but most of it's language and just very inappropriate. Like we do all kinds of like fake commercials, and we'll have like John Wayne Gacy babysitting and stuff like that, and we'll act out a commercial that makes it sound like it's real, and it's just a joke, but it's very dark humor. So again, if that's not your thing, then you won't like it at all. I'm just warning you. But the music we play are 30-second or less. So if you're not into metal, you don't have to sit there and think, oh, I don't want to listen to all that. It's not much. There's not much there. We just talk about the band, but you could always skip forward, get right to the Killer Cage match. All right. Well, tonight we got a good one for you. Dug this one out. Going to the UK again. We've already been to the UK. We're going to be back and forth over there because there's a bunch of sick individuals over there in the UK. I mean, the US is of course crazy, but we got a lot more people. But nonetheless, some good UK cases, and this is one of them. Very infamous. Some of you may or may not have heard of him, but John Reginald Christie, he went by Reg. That's what most people called him. But he is so creepy. I'm going to show you a picture of this dude. If you haven't already seen it, I'll share this with you so you can see what I'm talking about. I mean, this guy is just very creepy looking. And this is him. That's got a cat on his shoulder and a dog there at his hand, and then it says John Reginald Christie and pets in the back garden. That's a significant part of this story um, of 10 Rillington Place. So that's what that's all about. I'm not sure what this picture is here. Oh, this is, I guess, looking down at his garden from the window. So, so yeah, we're going to talk about this guy, but I wanted to show you that picture just so you could understand what what we're talking about here. This dude's just creepy. Jody says she had spine surgery and the grabber is the greatest. Yeah, I mean, I just put one down. It was not like putting a pet down by all means, but I was saddened to put it in the trash because it had been there. I could pick up pills with it. I mean, I think I'm going to start a grabber Olympic event, and I'm going to be the first one to do it, and then we can get other people in the fold, and make it a thing. Jody, you might want to participate in the Grabber Olympics. I like I said, I'm tough to beat. I had one the other day where I was picking up an object, but it was at a weird angle. So I flipped it up in the air, and while it was in the air, I caught it with the grabber and then picked it up that way. That was pretty cool. That was pretty cool, but it was tough. Jethro's laughing. Yeah, grab her Olympics, Donna. There you go. There you go. You can be my publicist, Donna. All right, so let me get to this here, guys. So let me see. No, that's not what I want. That's what I want. Okay. So this is one of the most infamous addresses in British history, this 10 Rillington Place. As a matter of fact, there's a movie that was done about this dude. It's an older movie, but it's great. And I can't think of who plays Christie, but it's a very well-known actor. I'm embarrassed I can't remember it offhand, but great movie. And it's pretty close, within reason. I mean, it was done like in the 70s, I believe. But it's an older movie, but it's great. It's great. And these walls and floors and the garden out back, which, had taken that picture with the pets, kind of creepy when you consider what was going on back there with all these bodies. So he definitely was doing some really awful things. Uh, One of the crimes in here that he did involves an infant. So if that's upsetting to you, you can bow out. I'll keep it brief, but I'm just giving you a heads up. So he was the kind of guy that just kind of blended in. We talk about those, a Bundy, a Gacy. I was going to say BTK, but he was kind of a jerk. Um, Shawcross. I mean, a lot of these guys were decent conversationalists, and you could see like talking to them at work, in the warehouse or in your office or whatever. They would just be like the average person, but they're not. They're psychopaths, and that's really scary. And because they don't have any real feelings, they have to learn from watching other people and how they react to things. So they're like actors. It's really odd when you think of it that way. That in order for them to present themselves as an affable, pleasant person, they have to see what that looks like so they can mimic it, and that's how they go through their life. I mean, it's really, really interesting stuff. But this guy, definitely was one of those. And he had, 8 victims at least. But he was born in 1899 in Yorkshire, which is up north in England, I believe, because I wrote a short story up that way. And I believe Yorkshire was up the north end of England. Six of the seventh kids. So, he was the sixth one. His father, very cold, very brutal, disciplinarian, old school, typical of that era. These were not good times. These people were struggling. And his mother and sisters kind of would smother him like a baby one minute and then completely, ignore him, and actually bullied him at other times. So he was so confused growing up with this mixed message with his mom and his sisters. It was really weird. And he kind of felt small, kind of powerless, not a good thing. But, this was, going on through his, younger years. And even, when he was 11, his grandfather died and the body was laid out in the home, which was, of course, a practice at the time, which we all know, where the term wake comes from. You're sitting there awake with the body. And this was very common back then. But Christie walked into the room. He's 11 now. He saw the corpse and said he felt powerful. And he feared, that was just a body, but it was very powerful. And that was, what he, kind of planted this seed in his mind of this obsession with that kind of power because he felt powerless. And so, the man, his grandfather was somebody he feared. He was very, very, the dad was a disciplinarian. Grandfather was even worse. So seeing him laid out dead there gave him power over him because now he was gone. So that's messed up. So as he grows older, Christie becomes socially isolated, another common thing with serial killers. At school, they're just very keep to themselves or kind of outcast. That's very sad. He struggled with sexual dysfunction early on, with impotence, and difficulty forming relationships. I mean, what a horrible thing to go through at any stage of your life, let alone, at your adolescence. And he was mocked, which, of course, kids are just awful. I can only imagine how bad that would have been. He was totally humiliated. And humiliation, as we've seen in other cases, we just had this with the Rob Reiner case, right? They say Nick Reiner allegedly was at this party and they got into the argument and he was embarrassed and his dad, was yelling at him and he was, felt, humiliated. And then he did what he did allegedly. So that's a very common thing, and humiliation is a driver in something like this for sure. So he serves in World War One, and was exposed to mustard gas, which was very common back in World War One with trench warfare, because they would let off the mustard gas and it stayed low to the ground. And then it would get in the trenches. So you had these guys entrenched, facing each other across the battlefield, and the mustard gas would get in and it would get down in the trench and you'd just choke and die if you got enough of it. So it was awful. And that's why it was, banned, but, people still used it. We dealt with mustard gas when I was in the Army. I never used it. I never used real stuff. Everything I did was in training, so we all used fake, gas and stuff like that. But it wasn't mustard gas because, again, it's illegal with the Geneva Convention. So, but it's awful. But I actually remember that it stayed low to the ground because when I was in low 12, I wrote all the lyrics and I wrote a song called Trench about trench warfare. And there's a line in there where it says mustard gas stays low to the ground, choking fumes, no one hears a sound. So I remembered that it stayed low. So, listening to heavy metal could be a good, intelligence booster. I'm just saying, I'm just saying. But yeah, he definitely, um, claims he was exposed to it, and then said he was blind and mute for years. And that was very hotly contested. A lot of people really had their doubts about it. There's no evidence of it. But what is clear is that he learned how to manipulate sympathy and how to craft this narrative about, he's fragile, he's damaged, he's, worthy of pity. I mean, that sort of thing, right? So throughout the 20s and 30s, he racked up convictions now. He's starting to get into crimes for theft and fraud. Nothing violent yet, but he was heading there. But the pattern is kind of forming with this dude. He lies very easily, and that's, of course, very scary. He slipped into roles. Kind of reminds me of BTK when he talked about cubing and how he puts his life in like a cube, and whatever side of the cube is facing out is who he portrays. The killer, the other cube, the dad, the other one, the dog inspector, whatever the hell he did for work. So that's how he lived his life. He was just cubing. It was very, very scary stuff. But again, what I was talking about earlier, that's how they have to look at it. They're learning. They're observing people and they're soaking in everything, hand gestures and all that to make it look like they're being truthful. And some of them, as we know, are really scary good at it, like a Bundy or, again, going back to Gacy. Those two are, very smart, and they man, they could have done so much worse had they not got caught. But they already did enough, but they would have been so much worse. So yeah, he's getting into this. He pretended to be what people needed him to be in that situation. Kind of the typical salesman that tries to be, the solve that need for the customer, and they'll do kind of whatever they need to do to make that happen. In 1938, he and his wife Ethel moved into a small flat, as they call them there in the UK, and that was the 10 Rillington Place. I was told by a UK listener or a viewer, I had wrongly said last week East London. He was in West London and 10 Rillington Place. Thank you for correcting me. And that address would be just synonymous with horror. So one of the things he would pose as is a medical expert. So again, we're talking about this nasty flat he's living in an impoverished part of town. And these people don't have money, so he's acting like he's like this medical expert. So when people say they need something, like getting rid of a child, they would I didn't want to say that word. They would go to this dude and he would pretend he had like medical books and stuff, looked like he was smart. You saw the picture, he's got the glasses. People would buy it. And he had a little setup in his apartment there, and he would gas them like gas from the stove gas, and he would knock them out. And then while they were knocked out, he would strangle them, typically with his bare hands, or sometimes he would use a ligature like a stocking or something like that to choke them out. And then sometimes he'd be able to perform acts upon the body either while it was passed out before he choked them or afterward, so after they were deceased. Absolutely disgusting, absolutely awful, but this dude was a necrophile. So he did that. And he was able to perform when he was doing stuff like this, which is, in contrast to what his normal life was. So it's kind of messed up. Next week, I'm not going to tell you who it is yet. It's a good one. Next week, same type of deal with this dude. Okay. Except next week, it was the act of stabbing that made him aroused to be able to do that. So, how whacked is that? We'll get to that one next week, though. So, he's playing this doctor persona. He'd even say he could fix bronchitis with like these mixtures, and he would have them inhale this gas, and he's getting them drunk, and then boom, they're out. And then again, unconscious. And that was how he did it. So he would lure them with some sort of promise, some sort of help that they needed, and then administer the gas, strangle them once they're incapacitated, and in many cases engage in the necrophilic acts. Now, this all stems from, he claims, and psychiatrists claim, of this whole death obsession with the grandpa and the body and the power. So that was his thing. He had power over these women because they were unconscious or deceased. And he did what he did to them in an act of, I'm more powerful than you kind of thing. Just like he thought about his grandfather. That's what I think. All right. But this dude wasn't just killing. I mean, he was controlling these women again. A lot of these serial killers, it's a power trip. It's a control thing. A lot of them, maybe had bad childhoods where they were beat. And so they're just angry and they're lashing out. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons why people do these things. But somebody like this, I mean, this guy was just very methodical about it. And then he had to get rid of the bodies, right? So the first victim, Ruth First, how funny, or interesting, I should say, not funny, that her last name is Fuerst, but I would pronounce that First or Furst. First known victim, part-time prostitute, strangled during sex, buried her in the garden. That's what the UK calls a backyard. And that's when it started. So 1943, And that's how he realized how easy it was to do it. So next year, 1944, Muriel Eady, she was a co-worker of his. He told her he had a cure for bronchitis. So she inhales a special mixture. She passes out. And then Christie strangles her and buries her next to Ruth in the garden. So, two murders, both hidden in the soil of that little garden. It's not very big. And then the Evans family tragedy. This was absolutely horrific. 1948 to 49. This was a long game, okay? This is so messed up, so tragic, okay? This is the worst of it all. Timothy and Beryl Evans lived upstairs. They were a young couple with a little infant. Called her name was Geraldine, and he frames this guy, and I'll explain it. So one day when Timothy was at work, um, Beryl comes downstairs and's talking to this guy, and he gets her somehow gets her in the apartment, but the baby was up asleep upstairs, and he gets her and he ends up gassing her and choking her out and all the rest, and then he goes upstairs and strangles the baby and then buries them both, I believe, in the garden as well. But just absolutely horrible. But then this guy comes home and or no, he didn't bury. No, he couldn't have buried them because they had to be there. Because then he frames. I'm sorry, he frames Timothy. Timothy comes home from work. This guy's acting like he doesn't know what's going on, and then frames him. Tells the police he heard them fighting upstairs, and he stormed off. And so now they go up there. They arrest him for the murders, and then he gets convicted, and then he's hanged like 2 months later, and then he winds up being found innocent when Christie eventually confesses, and the police they end up reversing it, and we're able to say, he was not guilty, to clear his name. So that's how awful. But that actually stemmed the people that were against the death penalty in the UK, and that's the what the kind of the catalyst was to get that started, was that case. Definitely, if that's your argument, that's a great case to mention, because that was horrendous. Because they just went off of this guy because he looked, kind of meek, and didn't nobody would have thought he was, doing something like that, right? And then he murders his wife, 1952. His life is like starting to really unravel. He strangles Ethel, puts her under the floorboards, because he's out of room out in the garden. And this is, he's just totally crossed the line now, killing her. He didn't have to pretend to be normal now. He could just be total psycho because he kept it under control when he was around her. And then he lures three more into the apartment, promising lodging, help of some kind, medical treatments. Again, he was a good talker, strangled each one, but with the garden full and the floorboards full, he ends up putting them in this alcove in the kitchen, and then puts like just wallpaper over it. So there's no wall, it's just wallpaper. And so he's living there. Of course, he knows that the bodies are in there, and of course, the smell had to be horrendous. He ends up moving out, which was so dumb. And then the new people come in. They, of course, could still smell it. And they easily find this false wall of wallpaper and rip through it. And they're like, oh my God, there's bodies in here. So this was just crazy. And so they obviously knew who lived there right before that. So they start looking for this guy, and he's wandering the streets. He's got no money. He doesn't know what to do. And all this, and they start finding more bodies. They find them in the floor and dig up the garden and everything. They show there's a few pictures online I saw I thought of I think it was like a backhoe of sorts. It would have been an old one, but still, there was some sort of device they were using to dig because it was like the whole thing, you know. So yeah, just a lot of evidence there in that house for sure. March of '53, he finally flees, and that's when he left. Um, and so then, you know, the manhunt is on, and he ends up getting arrested at the end of March on the 31st on this Putney Bridge, where he was, you know, just drifting aimlessly on this bridge out of his mind, um, and just looked like a complete bum. But they realized it was him and they arrested him. So he did not fight them back. I don't believe he was just really out of it for whatever he was, you know, hungry or what his situation was, but he was a mess. He's tried for only the one murder, which was his wife. They didn't need the other ones. They knew, you know, that the, you know, it was obvious, and I guess, you know, strategy in case he gets not guilty, they could go after him for the other ones too, which is not a bad idea. He did plead insanity, but the jury didn't buy it. That's such a hard row to toe. I've said it before. They say only 1% of people that try that are successful. So we'll see. Again, going back to the Nick Reiner case, you know, I'm sure that's the road they're going. Is, you know, that he's got all the, because he does has a lot of mental problems, and they were adjusting his meds. I mean, there's all kinds of issues. I'm going to do a video here in the next day or so about that case. So my first one. So stay tuned if you're interested in the Rob Reiner Nick Reiner case. So yeah, I mean, the jury doesn't buy it. He's sentenced to death. No big surprise. And he's hanged at Pentonville Prison July 15th, 1953. So they didn't fool around back in the day. This guy is, you know, he's captured in March and he's executed in July, same year. So that's what I'm talking about. But you know, again, this is the case that kind of started that whole, you know, death penalty discussion, and you know, they're still referred to in arguments made, you know, against the death penalty. I used to be totally for it personally, always have been for it. I still am, but I have reservation only because doing the podcast for 8 years, covering, like I said, 282 cases, it has come up where people are wrongly convicted or false confessions. You know, we did a whole episode on that. I had A.R. Hayes on there. I had a buddy of mine that's a prison guard, you know, on there. We did a whole panel on false confessions. And so, you know, there are reasons why, you know, sometimes the wrong person is executed. In this case is a glaring example of that. Tim Evans. I mean, that's so terrible. And to go to the, I don't know how they hung him or what it was, but probably to go to the gallows thinking everybody thinks I murdered the two people I love the most, you know, so terrible that to think that, you know, Reginald Christie or Reg Christie was, you know, getting away with literally murder, at least for the time being, but it didn't take long. And so he's hung, and that's that. But it's a wicked story for sure. But anybody got any discussions here? Donna said that was fast. I don't know if that's in reference to me or if that. Oh, I see. Okay. No, I was just wondering if I was too fast because I always try for about a half hour. So we're 35 minutes now. And I try to keep it to that so we have time to talk about it. And then any other stuff you guys want to talk about, you know, true crime related. I did a video today or yesterday on the Idaho 4 case. Oh, hey, mom. I see my mom's in there. Hello, mom. I did a video on the Idaho 4 case, and it was about the unknown male DNA, unanalyzed samples. I mean, it's so ridiculous. So if you missed it, you can check that out. But while I'm thinking about it, let's do some of this here. I got a new channel I'm working on, very new. I've only got a couple videos up, but you can watch a couple of them if you dig reaction videos. And I do calling it the Big Bald Guy or Big Bald Guy Reacts, and you can go check it out if you like reaction channels. I do two old Reebok commercials from the Super Bowl in 2003. It was Super Bowl 37, I believe. Just hilarious. I used to use them when I did training classes, and the guys always loved them. So I thought, why not? It's football season, it's cool stuff. So even if you don't like football, they're funny. So, but check that out, and I'm going to do more. I tried a Maury episode, and the YouTube god said no. They blocked it, and then I tried one with Extreme Cheapskates, and that one also got blocked. So it's frustrating to put that kind of work into these videos and then have them get blocked like that. So I'm trying to figure it out. I think I have, the formula of what I need to do, because the shorter ones I did, the two that are up there are shorter. Then, I can just duplicate that in a longer form. But my videos are about a half hour, so they're not crazy long. But the ones that are up there are like 10 minutes. Let's see. The merch, got all kinds of good merch there. They've been running crazy specials. I bought like three-quarters of my Christmas gifts on TeePublic. So I was buying all kinds of cool stuff for people, and enjoy doing that. And that really like using them. They're great, very good to us. Other than taking the Deafany one down, that was a bummer. I don't know if somebody complained, but I get all the time people saying, "How do I get one of those shirts? How do I get one of those shirts?" And I'm really tempted to just get some printed and sell them, but I hate dealing with t-shirts because you got to deal with sizes. So I got to get like medium, larges, extra large, 2X, 3X, I mean, and you're limited. And then it always works out. You buy more of one size than another, and you should have done it in the reverse. So now you're out of one size, you have too many of this one. It's a pain. So it's so nice that they deal with all that. So that's why I really like using them, because it's just easy. And they're crazy fast. You get your stuff in a week. Anybody wanting to do any of this, like I say, I enjoy doing this. I'm not doing this for the money, that's for sure. But if you want to, contribute, it's just to help pay the bills. Like StreamYard charges us an arm and a leg to use software like this to do lives. And, there's other stuff that costs money, web hosts and things like that. It's not a crazy amount of money, but, there are expenses to it. So appreciate that. Next week, we're going to do this dude. Now, I don't know if you know who this guy is, but we're going to the Ukraine. And this guy, the Ukrainian beast, the Rostov Ripper, Andrei Chikatilo, this guy was off the rails. This guy was just insane. With the stabbing and all that I was telling you about. His body count is at least 52. It's interesting. We'll do another guy eventually. I believe he was Russian. Yeah, he was Russian. They call him the chessboard killer. We'll do the chessboard killer at some point, but I wanted to do Chikatilo first because they're related in that the chessboard killer was after Chikatilo. He wanted to outdo Chikatilo's number, so he had a chessboard, and he kind of used the chessboard as like numbers of victims with the squares. And if he filled it up, he would beat Chikatilo. How screwed up is that? And so he was at the end, the cops had him, and he was like confessing to more crimes because he wanted to get his body count up there over Chikatilo. And he couldn't do it because the cops were saying, no, you're just saying this. So they wouldn't believe him on purpose because they didn't want him to do what he wanted, which is to beat Chikatilo. So his body count was like 2 or 3 under Chikatilo. And he was so pissed off. And then to make matters worse, they sent him to the Black Dolphin in Siberia, which is insane. We did a podcast on it. Wow. Watch a video on the Black Dolphin prison and you'll see what I mean. But that's where I can't remember what his name is, but we call, his nickname is the chessboard killer, but it's a Russian name. So like it's a little hard to pronounce. But yeah, we'll do that case eventually. But he was trying to outdo Chikatilo, but Chikatilo beat him out, I guess. And if you're not already a subscriber, if you want to do that, that's cool. That helps the channel. Doesn't cost anything. And if you could like the video, I always say leave some touch DNA on the like button there, and promise we won't swab it and turn you in and say you did the Idaho 4. But secret's safe here. Your secret's safe here. All right. So yeah, it's always nice to see you guys on Tuesdays. Does anybody have any? Kara says she loves football. That's cool. I got to admit, I got pissed off. I think I may have mentioned this before on the players kneeling down during uh, this opening ceremonies. And so I just stopped watching it because I was pissed. I also was pissed because they did it in baseball for a very short period of time, but they did it. So I was also pissed. And so for like 3 or 4 years, I didn't watch either one. I completely abstained from it. Eventually, the Yankees got me back interested. And so last season was the first season I watched like just about every game. And it was great. And my wife and I watched the games together, which is nice. And so I've been watching the Yankees. And then here lately, I've been watching the Steelers, which was my team when I was following it. And so I enjoyed watching this last game. It was exciting. And, I don't know some of the players because I've been away from it for a while, but, it's interesting to me still. Um, I just really got pissed about that. I thought that was wrong. Those guys get so much money. They could do so much more if they were upset about how they were treated or whatever they were boycotting. They could have pooled their money and done unbelievable things, poured into their communities, start businesses. That would have been such a positive thing. But no, kneeling during the national anthem, I don't think so. I don't think so. All right, let's see here. Okay. Seeing if I'm missing anybody. Oh, misleading evidence is here. She fell asleep. Yeah, it's all right. I'll give you a pass, Alicia. That's fine. That's fine. You're kind of an employee here because you did a live with me. We'll have to do that again. The viewers really enjoyed that, so we'll have to do that again. Um. Okay, somebody's at here. Teresa Morris. Pete, have you seen the sports ones for bad lip reading? Yeah, those are hilarious. Yeah, they are really funny. They are super funny. Yeah, I love that stuff. Love that stuff. Karis just says, wow. I don't know what the wow was for, Karis. I'm sorry I didn't see it in real time, but there's Karis with wow. Oh, 52 is a lot. Yeah. Chikatilo on another level. On another level. I mean, this dude got all dressed up in a suit and got on the train like he was going to work. and he would get off at a stop that was kind of like out on the outskirts of a town, and there was like a lot of wooded area around here and stuff. And what he would do is he would lure women into the or kids into the woods, and then he would do that stuff to them. So he would get them and somehow convince them I got some candy or some sodas or whatever it was. I'll refamiliarize myself with it because it's been a while, but yeah, he was horrible. He was horrible. 52 is a lot, and they think it was more. They think there were more, though. That's all they could get him on. But there were probably others they maybe didn't have evidence or is enough evidence. Um, okay, so Foxy Rose is saying, back to the kitchen. Time for fly red meat and popcorn shrimp and side of baked carrots. I need to eat. Oh, okay, gotcha. I was there thinking you were like talking some Geen like stuff here, but okay, I got you. You're just hungry and you guys got to eat, so that's all good. That's all good. Long day, I get it. I get it. I do appreciate you being here for the time that you were here. With this time of year, I never know. With people what they're going to do. I am doing a live on Saturday, so I will do my live Saturday. As far as I know, it's alone, but I know me and Michael Dario are going to be doing one. I'm hoping for maybe next week for Michael, but we'll see. I've got some surgeries coming up, two of them. I told you about the one on the 6th. That's a small one that hopefully will only keep me down for a couple days in the hospital, but I'll have my laptop with me. I'll be in full mode. I mean, I'll operate from the room, no problem. And then if I'm there for I'll miss the serial killer story hour because I think that's Tuesday when I go in for surgery. So I'll miss that week. But then the live on Saturday, if I'm in the hospital, I'll just do it from the room. And I'll just work on stuff in the room. And then there's a surgery I need for a hernia that I have that's very large. It's like the size of a volleyball, if you can believe that, in my abdomen. And it's very cumbersome and it just sucks. So I'm getting that done amazingly on my birthday, which is wild. But when they gave me the date, I told the nurse, I said, well, if that's a birthday present, get rid of this damn volleyball off of me. So they're going to do that on my birthday, which is February 18th. So I used to kid my children and tell them that my birthday, because normally President's Day is right around there. And I used to give my kids grief when I would tell them that really you're at a school today, not because of this President's Day stuff they're talking about. It's for my birthday, but they just don't want to upset the rest of the parents by just singling me out, for my birthday. And they were just like, Dad, get out of here. So I just constantly giving my kids crap and love messing with them. And they've definitely grown up to be individuals that mess with other people too. So that's always fun. But yes, I did parenting okay. Let's see. Let's see. Foxy Rose says, I love No Choice for a Mean Russian Accent. Yeah. I try not to do accents only because, you're going to offend somebody. And I'm not good really with the accents. So I don't want to sound like an ass. So I just don't normally don't do it. But we used to have one of the guys on the podcast, Chris, he used to do a German accent. And it was so funny we were doing a fake commercial. I don't know which one it was, but he was a Russian or German, and he did it pretty decent, like for the first like 5 seconds, and then it somehow morphed into he sounded like Cheech Marin, and I was dying. And then when I told him that, we were all dying. But they're hard to do, especially to stay on point with it. Some people are better at it than others. So we didn't do a whole. If we did them, it was meant to sound like crap, and that made it funnier. So we would do the accents if in some cases, but only because we sounded like idiots trying to do it. And the real people from those areas loved it, and they thought it was funny, that we were being fools and all that. So Kara says Black Dolphin, yeah. Whoa, that place is horrible. It's silent in there. Have you ever seen a prison silent before? You're not allowed to talk in there. So imagine that your entire life in complete silence. And when they take you from, like, let's say you're taken from your cell for like a medical, they cuff you in the back like normal, but they hold your arms up so your head's pointed down so you can't look around and see where you are or plan an escape of any sort. So they point your head down, and that's how they move you around the prison, and you're not allowed to see anything. And so people have no concept of like where the walls are, where any kind of fences are, and they're completely, you know, don't have any idea. And then if you get out, you're in Siberia, okay? So you're not going to live long. And then they got these dogs that look like camels. I mean, they're huge, not with the long necks, but they're big. These dogs are crazy, and they look just mean as all hell, real shaggy, and they're like some sort of Russian dogs. And they send these things out for you, and I guarantee you're not going to live long there. So it's a brutal place. Nobody's ever escaped from the Black Dolphin. So yeah, if you like that kind of stuff, check it out. There's some good YouTube docs about it. Kara says she loves the Yankees. Awesome. Yeah, definitely a big Yankee fan all my life. Born in the Bronx, kind of born into the blood. All right, Foxy Rose is leaving. Let's see. Have you ever seen? Have you ever seen a 50-foot chic or shake, Pete? Do you know what I mean? Wish you all the best. Okay. I'm not sure exactly what that means. I'm not sure what that means. Okay, because we're getting close to the time here, so I'm trying to make sure I get through this. Donna's birthday's in February as well. Awesome, Donna. Awesome. Let's see. Foxy Rose says, dude, if you did Russian, I would never see you the same. Yeah, I wouldn't do the Russian one for sure. I wouldn't do any of it. Like I said, maybe like an English type accent, but even that, I'm sure I sound like a jackass, to somebody that's from there. So, so when we did the podcast, we made fun of ourselves like a lot. So it was just funny. All right, misleading evidence says she can't do accents other than Southern. Well, yeah, you're down there in Oklahomaville, so yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, the Hounds of Hell, yeah, they'll show you in the docs those dogs. Oh my god, there's a name for them. I can't remember, but holy shit! I mean, they're just over the top. So yeah, the nearest town is I think like a 4-hour car ride away. So if you're on foot, you're in Siberia. You're not going to last long, even if the dogs didn't come chew you up. So Foxy Rose says I could see Pete in an Australian outback. Well, we used to have. I've had my friend Mick on the show. Mick is Australian. Some of you may have seen my long form video I did on the DNA and the botched crime scene. It's in my true crime deep cuts playlist. And I interviewed Mick. Mick is a former Australian federal police officer, so like our equivalent of the FBI. And he was on hundreds of murder scenes. And so we talked about how they screwed it up and all this kind of stuff. And the UK or the Australians and us are very similar in a lot of ways, not every way, but a lot of ways when it comes to policing. So his experience is still, comparable, and it's a good video. It's about an hour long, but we really get into it. And also, I talk about other stuff too. But part of it is Mick. A good part of it is my conversation with him. And we also had him on the podcast anytime we did Australian cases, which we did probably a dozen at least. Cases from Australia, great gangsters, really good ones. If you like true crime and you've not been familiar with Australian true crime cases, there's a video channel over there. I can't remember what it is, but if you Google or YouTube search Australian true crime, you'll find it. But he does a series of really well done, like 45, 50-minute videos on all kinds of people. A lot of these gangsters and all these, there was a rent-a-killer and a lot of really good nicknames, Razor, and some of these other ones that were just fighting each other in the street with straight razors because guns were illegal. I mean, just wicked. This woman, that was known as Razor because she would, lash out at guys. She went into a barber shop and laced this guy's jugular open. And yeah, I mean, she was brutal. So there's some good ones if you like Australian true crime, but I enjoy it. They're very, very similar to our gangsters. It's cool. So, but with that, hope you guys have a great Christmas. I'll see you after Christmas. Hope that Santa is good and that you guys get some good time with the family and eat some good food and all of that. And Paulie is saying you better watch out because you got only a couple days here and then Santa's coming. So if you've been bad, like I have been, then you may not get anything. So hopefully that's not the case. But I will see you guys hopefully Saturday if you're not busy, and we'll do it again. And next week, Andre Chikatilo, the Rostov Ripper. It's going to be brutal. So we'll see you then. Thanks, guys.
Got you fired up and thinking you earned a nice cold beer or beverage of choice. Or if the greenery is what you dig, I hope it's moist. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and leave a word in the comments. It helps the video grow. Hell yeah, tell your friends you rode with the middle man today. Spread the word like a case of the clap in a trailer park. We all know that hussy who can get the whole park stretch. And hell yeah, tell your friends you rode with Murder Metal May and today. Spread the word like a case of the clap in a trailer park. Like a case of clap in a trailer park.